Good afternoon. Of course, we are now in 1964. Adding this teacher's tape to the series made in 1963. And I want to start off by telling you that the Infinite Way Monthly Letters 1964 consist of an entire series devoted to spiritual healing in accord with the principles of the Infinite Way. That may not be spiritual healing as somebody else understands it. That is only spiritual healing as it is practiced in the message of the Infinite Way. And this series will include both aspects of spiritual healing that are included in the Infinite Way. That is, the metaphysical and the mystical. The mystical approach to spiritual healing cannot be accomplished by anyone until the metaphysical principles of the Infinite Way are so much a part of them that they have become like flesh and bones unto them. In other words, the mystical consciousness is developed through the metaphysical, and more especially through Infinite Way metaphysical, because we do have specific, consistent principles which develop consciousness. In other words, we do not have a system that says one day that your wrong thinking produced your troubles, and then the next day that your wrong thinking isn't the cause. We do not give you a treatment one day for muscles and brain and heart, and the next day give you another kind of treatment for something else. In other words, the metaphysical principles of the Infinite Way are absolutely consistent, and they are based on this, that God is consciousness, the infinite consciousness, and that man and the universe is this consciousness formed, expressed. And therefore, since God is incorporeal spirit, man and the universe is incorporeal spirituality. Therefore, just as you have never seen God with your eyes and never will, neither have you ever seen man or this universe with your eyes. You have never yet seen a tree. You have never yet seen a flower as they are in the Garden of Eden, in the consciousness of God. All that you have seen with your eyes is a finite concept of God's creation, built on the universal belief in two powers. Therefore, you have seen concepts that are sometimes good, sometimes bad, sometimes young, sometimes old, sometimes sick, sometimes well, sometimes alive, and sometimes dead. But remember, these are not creations of God. These are creations of man, man-made concepts. So that when you look over here at me, you don't see me. You see a concept that you have formed in your mind of me. And therefore, if I ask my neighbor to describe me, you wouldn't recognize me, because that is not the me that you have formed in your mind. And if you could speak to my mother, you'd never recognize me at all, because she has still a different concept of me. Do you see that? So that none of you have ever seen me. Now, If you are in meditation sometime, and you reach a high enough consciousness, you may then see me and know me exactly as I am. But that will only be when you are having no concepts of me and you have risen above the mind and are beholding with the vision that God gives you. Now then, remember that the basis of our metaphysical work is that God is consciousness, and that this entire universe, including man, is that consciousness formed or expressed, but in its own image and likeness, of the same substance, same quality, same quantity, same nature, same character, so that all that is true of God is true of man and the universe. Now, as against this, we have what the Master called this world, what I first described as my kingdom. This now is this world which is not of my kingdom. And this world is a state of hypnotism. And in order for you to see that clearly, I will remind you that when an individual is hypnotized, he can see, hear, taste, touch, and smell whatever the hypnotist puts into his mind. So that, does he ever see, hear, taste, touch, or smell anything but hypnotism in different forms? Supposing in his hypnotized state, he sees 1,000 wild beasts come at him. Are they wild beasts or are they forms of hypnotism? Are they ever externalized as beasts? If a man in a hypnotized state saw himself in a burning fire, burning up, would there be a fire there and would he be burning up? Would he? No. Because the substance of the fire would be hypnotism, wouldn't it? Huh? All right. Supposing a millionaire is hypnotized and he sees himself in the form of a beggar. Is he a beggar? Is there a beggar there? Is there anything there but hypnotism? Supposing a poor man is hypnotized and sees himself as a millionaire. Can he go out and spend his money? No, he hasn't any. He only has hypnotism. Now, the healing principle of the infinite way is that since God is consciousness, universal, infinite consciousness, appearing as individual man, formed, expressed as individual man and the universe, this is a spiritual universe. And since every appearance of error is the product of hypnotism, a hypnotism caused by a belief in two powers, there are no such things as cancers or consumptions or poverties or unemployments or erroneous people or sinners. There is no such thing. And in the proportion that you see such things, you are hypnotized. And you are seeing forms of hypnotism. When you are dehypnotized, you will see me as I am. You will see God as God is. You will see this universe as it is. Now, an example of that is this, that in your purely human state, certain germs can cause diseases. And in that state they do, or appear to. But when you are dehypnotized as a metaphysician, you can heal those diseases. You not only don't catch them, but you heal them. Why? Because you see these germs now in their true light. And they can't be destructive because God has never introduced anything into his universe to destroy it. Otherwise, where would you get immortality, or eternality, or infinity? Therefore, in infinite way healing work, there is no cause for any erroneous condition except hypnotism. Whether it is lack and limitation, sin, false appetite, disease, death, war, man's inhumanity to man, unhappy marriages. There's no use of looking in the patient's thought for the error, because it isn't there. The error is in the universal belief in two powers, good and evil, which is so strong that it's hypnotic. And it makes you see pictures that are sometimes good and sometimes evil. You're not responsible for that. You didn't create this world. Therefore, you've never created any of the troubles that you've ever had in your life. You have been a victim in every case of a universal belief in two powers, which belief is so hypnotic that you've come under it. And therefore, you've looked out and you've said, this person did me an injustice. When after there was only one power, there isn't any power of injustice, is there? Therefore, you had to be hypnotized by a belief in two powers before you could see that person or meet them. So we, in the infinite way, have one cause of all discord, hypnotism. When you recognize this, this is the end of your treatment. Because you don't do anything to hypnotism after you've recognized it to be hypnotism. In other words, when a person can recognize hypnotism, they're not hypnotized. If you were to tell a hypnotized person that what they're seeing isn't there, you couldn't convince them of it, because they're hypnotized. When they're dehypnotized, you couldn't convince them that they ever believed it. And that is why your treatment consists of knowing, first of all, that consciousness, which I am, is the cause of this entire creation, including everyone in it. And that any appearance of materiality, even the good ones, are a state of hypnotism. They're a state of hypnotism. And therefore, you don't have to work to get rid of the flames or the cancer or the unemployment. Because if you got rid of them, you'd still be hypnotized. And hypnotism would then take another form. What you have to do is lay the axe at the root. And the root is hypnotism. And the moment you've recognized this is hypnotism, you're free and the patient's free. Even though it may not happen with the patient on the first realization. It may be because your realization hasn't been really strong enough, or there are 1,000 causes and reasons in patients why they still cling. But the point is that you are responsible only for you. You have to decide on whether or not the infinite way clicks with you, whether or not it registers, whether or not it seems to you this is it. Then you have to know what you mean by that. Because if you insult your own intelligence, you cannot succeed. I mean, if you walk around affirming, I am the child of God, I am the child of God, and all the time you're suffering, you're insulting your own intelligence. If you walk around and say, oh, I am rich, I am the Son of God, and you're not, you're insulting your own intelligence. You do not make affirmations of something you hope to become. That's insulting your own intelligence. In this work, you must know the truth. There's no faith healing about it. It's knowing the truth. And the truth has to do with the truth of creation, the nature of God, man, and the universe. And the nature of God is consciousness, which I am. And the nature of the universe and man is that infinite spiritual consciousness forming itself as you and as me and as the trees and the birds and the beasts. And what of this world? This is an appearance world based on the Adam and Eve belief in two powers, good and evil, which has become so hypnotic that now we begin to see hypnotic pictures. The world finds a cure for one incurable disease, and then it finds another incurable disease. The newspaper here today announces the discovery in Hawaii of another terrible affliction which is coming upon it. Never heard of before, it's just come into the world. See? They get rid of one, and a new one all of a sudden makes its appearance. Well, they'll heal that, and then another one will take its place. Until the day comes when you stop playing around with coughs and colds and flu and heart and consumption and cancer and begin to recognize this is a form of hypnotism presenting itself to me as a condition. Or this is a form of hypnotism presenting itself to me as a sick person or a poor person or an unemployed person. But it's a state of hypnotism. Now, with this you must understand why the Master said that you must be in the world but not of it. Unless you keep yourself separate from the world, you're going to be a part of that hypnotism. You can't be indulging it and at the same time saying it's not there. Therefore, the day comes when you live your life separate and apart from people, except that you go among them to reveal this truth, but not to live in their lives. Because the minute you start living in the lives of your family and your friends, the people of this world, you're accepting their hypnotism at its face value. And that is as nonsensical as the practitioners who set aside 2 or 4 hours a day to go to an office and be a practitioner. What in heaven's name are they doing the other 20 hours in the day? Oh, they're taking care of their household and they're taking care of their families but they think that by going to an office for 4 hours, that makes them a practitioner. You have to live this life. And the only way you can live it is just to be in it to the extent of revealing truth, but not in it to the extent of living their lives. Because the lives that are being led out here is a hypnotic experience, an unreal experience, one based on the whole belief of good and evil. It has been written, and rightly so, that the day must come when we must stop being philanthropic, because we are merely indulging another form of world hypnotism instead of staying apart from the world in our declaration that there's nobody to be helped. And then let those that are still struggling in the hypnotism work their way out of it. Well, I am not advocating that for us at this present time. I am advocating that we take into consideration that there are degrees of consciousness, and therefore that if somebody asks us for bread, let's not give them a stone. If we can help them at their level of consciousness, do it without accepting that their state is a real one, knowing that we're helping them only at that level of consciousness. Now, until our students arrive at the place where these two major unfoldments constitute their understanding of this message, they cannot succeed with it. Because this is all there is to spiritual healing according to the infinite way, knowing the nature of error as a state of hypnotism. Not trying to correct a state of error, not trying to improve it, not trying to have a fever go from 104 to 101, and then to 98 and 2/10, but to recognize the fact that all temperatures are a part of the material dream. Because in spirit there are no temperatures, not even normal temperatures. See that? There are no blood pressures in spirit. There are no heartbeats in spirit. So therefore, we are not concerned with changing the nature of a person's health, because there is no health in God. There's no health in God. There's eternality. Nothing ever disturbs eternality. I and my Father are one, therefore I am eternal. I am infinite. There's no such thing as amounts of supply. There is only infinity. When you go to count the blades of grass in the lawn, or the leaves on a tree, or the fruits, you'll discover that there is no such thing as a large amount or a small amount. There is only infinity. And if you could burn it all up in one day, the next day it would be right there growing again. Because there is only infinity, nothing less. You may have a X number of dollars in your possession today, but that does not represent your supply. Because if you spent them or gave them away, or they got burnt up, or inflation destroyed them, in the very next second, they start to multiply again. Infinity is flowing. So spend them, give them away, throw them away, burn them up, whatever you like, because you cannot stop the flow of infinity. As long as you recognize that God is infinite consciousness, expressing itself. Now, God cannot stop expressing itself on a certain date, any more than he can start expressing himself this minute or after you've given a treatment. The patient really isn't any better after you've given a treatment than before. It's only that now they're exhibiting more of their divine selfhood. You don't make them better than they were. You merely bring out through your treatment a greater measure of their divinity. You have seen through Orthodox religions that there is no use of praying to God for anything because you're not going to get it. The reason you're not going to get it is there isn't any such God. Therefore, unless you do know God aright, you might just as well stop praying. But if you understand God to be the infinite consciousness of this universe, which means that it must be the consciousness of you and me, then you can pray. But now your prayer is a communion with your inner self. It isn't a seeking anything. It's really an acknowledgement of the infinite nature of your own consciousness, appearing as infinite, harmonious form. If I and my Father are one, I must be all that God is. And I must have all that God is. Then that's basic truth. Then as against that, we have this world. Once we have seen that hypnotism is the basis of this world, then you can say that paper is this basic substance. And so if I make a picture of a cat and a dog and a man, I still have nothing but paper, have I? Now, what is the quality of the cat and the dog and the man? The quality of paper. How eternal is the life of the cat and the dog and the man? As long as the life of the paper. When there's no longer paper, there's no longer cat, dog, or man, is there? But as long as there's paper, there's cat, dog, and man, isn't there? Now, in reality, God is the substance of all form. Therefore, the nature and character of all form, cat, dog, or man, tree, bird, or beast, is God. Therefore, they're eternal. But the substance of this world is hypnotism. And therefore, you can't get rid of the errors of this world or the limitations of this world until you get rid of the hypnotism. Do you see that? When you're rid of the paper, you're rid of the cat, dog, and man. When you're rid of hypnotism, you're rid of sin, disease, death, and all forms of limitation. How do you get rid of hypnotism? By recognizing. That's the only way. The only way. If somebody presents to you the picture of sick or sinning mortal man, cat, dog, bird, beast, whatnot, and you can say to yourself, bosh, hypnotism, that picture disappears and you get a call, oh, that was wonderful. See? What was wonderful? Did you heal them of anything? Did you have a gift from God that enabled you to do something for them? No, you knew the truth. And knowing the truth means knowing the nature of God and His creation, which is my kingdom, and knowing the nature of this world, which is hypnotism. Know this truth, and this truth will make you free. The longer you work with this truth, the more a miracle happens in your life. At first you accept it intellectually. You feel it must be so, it must be right. And you work with it. And you begin to get results. Those results are not entirely miracles, but they're good results. Enough to show you that you're on the right track. As you continue to work with them, your consciousness changes from a state of hypnotized consciousness to dehypnotization. And then all of a sudden you say, whereas before I was blind, now I see. This is the kingdom of God. You don't go any place to get the kingdom of God. You don't die to get there. You don't go to Jerusalem or to Rome or to somewhere else. This is the kingdom of God. This hell has become heaven. But that's only when you're awakened out of the state of hypnotism. Remember, you do not get rid of hypnotism any more than you get rid of rheumatism. You do not overcome hypnotism. You do not struggle with it. You do not look for a God power to do something to it. You merely recognize that the substance, the fabric of this world is hypnotism, and then drop it. Just as if you were to see 2 times 2 is 5 on a paper or blackboard, you wouldn't struggle around to overcome it. You'd merely substitute 2 times 2 is 4, and that's that. Or you'd say, that's a mistake, 2 times 2 is 5. But you wouldn't do anything after you said it was a mistake, because there's nothing to be done. That's all you can do. Once you've known it's a mistake, it doesn't fool you anymore, does it? All right. If somebody tells you a lie, and you think it's the truth, you can get in trouble. But if someone tells you a lie and you know it's a lie, do you have to do anything then? You don't even have to correct the liar, do you? Because you don't care what they're doing. That's their business, what they're doing. All you have to do is, that's a lie, I can't be fooled. Right? Well then, if a claim is presented to you of any nature, and you recognize, that's neither person, place, nor thing, that's a state of hypnotism. It's all you have to do. You're not fooled by it. You've recognized it as a lie. It's lost its power. And the one who has come to you for help, because there is only one consciousness, they've united themselves with you, they all of a sudden wake up and say, oh, it was a lie. So the healing process is not complicated. The healing truth is not complicated. It just consists of those 2 parts. But attaining the actual awareness that this is true, that's the difficult part. And that's what you struggle with, is yourself. Until you can reach a state of consciousness that can recognize a lie. Until you can reach a state of consciousness that doesn't get frightened at the name of atomic bomb, cancer, consumption, polio, mongoloid babies, paralysis, blindness, deafness. When you can arrive at that state where those words do not frighten you, and you can say, oh, that's a lie, then you are in the healing consciousness. But as long as these names or appearances still make you want to do something, you're hypnotized. You're accepting a lie as if it were a fact. Therefore, the whole of the spiritual path is an internal struggle that takes place within our own consciousness. It isn't what's wrong with the world. There's nothing wrong with the world. What is wrong with my concept of the world? How am I beholding the world? Am I seeing Jesus as a resurrected Hebrew prophet? Or am I seeing Jesus as Peter saw him, as the Christ? Am I seeing man as a mortal? Or am I recognizing Christ incarnate? Do you see the difference? And it's as simple as this, and it's as difficult as this. The simplicity is that there are only two important parts: the nature of God and His creation, the nature of error and its creation. And that's all. We build our entire life on those 2 points. You must remember that error can appear in as infinite amount of forms as God's grace can appear. When you sit here and one letter is marital discord, and the next letter is parental and filial discord, and the next one is financial discord, the next one is physical, the next one's moral, and the next one's relationships, and the next one's business, and the next one's employment, and the next one's age. Oh, you go on here, you can't believe all the different forms of error that come to this desk. Well, if you were going to treat them, you would not only have to be an MD, you would have to be a mental specialist, physical, moral, you'd have to be a financial counselor, you'd have to be a marriage counselor, you would have to be about everything. Oh, yes, and then we have actors coming who want better parts, and musicians who want this. And do you see what I mean? It's infinite what comes in this mail. But remember, it isn't true. Only one thing comes in this mail: a state of hypnotism. That's all. It's a state of hypnotism appearing in infinite form and variety. And so, I must write to many people that I'm not an employment agency, and to others that I'm not a marriage counselor, and to others that I'm not a psychologist, and to others I'm not a minister who reforms the sinners or saves souls, because most of them believe that that's what we are. But I say to you that we are only one thing. We are those who have received the revelation of the nature of God and the nature of error. God is what I am. And my kingdom is the projection, the manifestation or expression of the consciousness which I am. And it's all beautiful. And all of the appearances that do not bear witness to that, they're a lie. Why? There's no substance to them, no law to them. Because all they are pictures produced by hypnotism. So if you see a whole city burning, don't run for water to put out the flames. Just recognize it to be hypnotism. If you see a tidal wave on the way to wipe out a city, don't run around looking for barriers to keep it out. Just stand still and recognize it as a state of hypnotism. If you hear of an infection or contagion or a fire up in the Hollywood Hills, don't run looking for firemen. Recognize it as a state of hypnotism. And then watch what happens to that hypnotic picture. This is what makes it so difficult for metaphysicians to understand our message. They're approaching it from their metaphysical background. This isn't it at all, as you can see by this. It is difficult also for people, because of the centuries of orthodox beliefs that are behind us. They cannot catch the vision that God can't do anything. God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Nothing changes in God. He cannot inaugurate peace on earth today, or tomorrow, or next week. Because in His kingdom there's never been anything but peace. On earth as it is in heaven. They cannot understand that God cannot heal a disease, because God never permitted a disease. There never has been a disease. All that God has been from the beginning, God is now. We come into the awareness of the harmony of God today or tomorrow or next week or in this lifetime or the next. But it's always been there. We may come into a state of prosperity today, which we never knew before. But it's always been there. Don't ever forget that in all of the times of depression, there is no less gold in the world, or silver, or platinum, or diamonds, or pearls, or potatoes, or carrots, or meat, or wine, or water. In other words, there is no less wealth in the world in our days of poverty than in our days of abundance. All that's happened is we have come into the awareness and demonstration of it. There were millionaires made in the 1930s. Plenty of people became millionaires. Plenty of people made fortunes of $100,000, $200,000, $300,000. It isn't that there wasn't just as much wealth in the world in the 1930s as there is now. So therefore, how could you go to God for wealth? If you're not getting it, it isn't God's fault. His wealth is here. We are not tuned in. And the reason we are not tuned in is that we allow ourselves to be hypnotized by appearances. I had one experience with a man who, up to the Depression, was a millionaire. And who, when he came to me, couldn't afford $5 a week for room rent. And who, within 18 months after that, was the partner in a big, prosperous firm again. All during the early years of the Depression. Was there any greater wealth one time than another? No. No. The hypnotism was broken. How? By recognizing that evil conditions are merely hypnotism appearing. And the recognition is the treatment. You don't do anything afterward. It's like you look out in the distance and you see a horizon. You recognize it as a horizon. Can you get rid of the horizon? No, that'll never go from there, because it isn't there at all. It's a misconception, isn't it? But even though the appearance stays there, you're not fooled or limited by it. You can get out on a ship and go anywhere you want, merely because you've recognized horizon. Before 1492, you couldn't have done that, because horizon was supposed to be a physical condition. So you don't have to do anything to a horizon, do you? All right. If you go to the desert and you see the illusion out there, the mirage, as long as you believe in it, you're fooled by it. But what happens to it the moment you recognize that it is mirage? It falls away, doesn't it? You go right on about your business. Then it's no longer a condition, is it? It's just an illusion now. You're not bothered with an illusion. That won't stop your progress across the desert. So it is. You do not get rid of evil. An infinite way practitioner does not overcome evil or destroy evil or get rid of evil. But an understanding, infinite way practitioner recognizes every appearance, everything that you can see, hear, taste, touch, and smell as the product of a universal hypnotism and drops it. This is the secret of our healing work. This is why my own work as a Christian Science practitioner flourished for 16 years across the entire United States and made me known throughout the United States. And that is why that in the 17 years or more of the Infinite Way, we have become world known. Not because we've written books. There are loads of metaphysicians who have written books who have not become world known and world established. There were metaphysicians long before Joel Goldsmith writing books who are absolutely unknown in the rest of the world and who have no world work. Then what established the Infinite Way? The fruitage. The fact that people could write from South Africa or Australia or England or France or anywhere else and were never turned down. Nobody ever said, no, I can't take care of you. I'm too busy or I'm doing something else. Instantly, I am immediately with you. Relax and rest in the assurance of my peace and of my grace. And it happened. Happened in all parts of the world, and therefore we have today 5 books and a monthly letter in German and 2 more books each year being translated and published. We already have 2 books in French, a 3rd one has just been translated, and the 4th one is starting. We have 1 in Dutch, we have 1 in Japanese. They're all keeping on in their increasing. Why? Because of the fruitage of the work. We have some practitioners who have very, very small practices, and they do not increase very much or very rapidly. And we have some practitioners who flourish. What is the difference? It's the same principle. One knows the principle exactly thoroughly, concretely, and works specifically with them, doesn't deviate back and forth, stands on these two factors of our principle, the nature of God and my kingdom and the nature of evil and its world, and stands fast in that until they develop such a consciousness of it that they're not fooled by appearances. They don't sympathize, they don't pity. They have a human understanding because they know that in our ignorance we were the same as the rest of the world. So that we never lose that compassion that realizes that as long as they're hypnotized, they're going to know good and evil. That is why we cannot rejoice over good health. Because good health can drop dead tomorrow. See? The only good health that you must attain is the health that comes through the realization of your own identity as I am, and the fact that the rest of this world is a hypnotic experience, and drop it. Do not be concerned with it. Do not fight it. Why do you think the Master taught, resist not evil? Would he have done that if you have to fight error? Resist not evil. Put up thy sword. Those who live by the sword will die by it. Those who live by fighting evil are going to die by that evil. Once you enter the kingdom of God and realize a spiritual peace, you will at the same time realize that you never had an enemy in any form. All you ever were faced with was an hypnotic world, a world of which the substance was hypnotism. And you were fooled by the pictures formed by hypnotism. And one day you were fooled by a fire, and one day by tidal waves, and the next day by volcanoes, and the next day by epidemics, and the next day by unhappinesses, and the next day by poverties, and every day hypnotism formed a new picture for you. And as fast as you got out of one picture, it produced another picture. But if you lay the axe at the root and say, you'll not fool me again. I know the fabric of this world is nothingness. The fabric of this world is hypnotism. There is no law to any of its pictures. No law of disease, no law of health. The only law there is, I am, for I am the law. There is no law operating in me, on me, or through me, for I myself am the law. There is no good can come to me, for I am is the only good. No peace can come to me. My peace give I unto you, who do not know this truth. Nobody has any peace to give me. Nobody has any prosperity to give me. Nobody has any health to give me. Nobody has any love to give me. I am love. And that is why, writing once on the subject of companionship, I said, you cannot get companionship because it doesn't exist out here. Companionship is something you have to express. And when you begin to express companionship, a companion appears. But if you look for it to appear out here, It can't. And it's the same with love. Those people in this world who are waiting to be loved are going to wait 7,000 years. Because the only love there is the love we express. And the moment we express it, it comes back to us. The bread that I cast upon the water is earmarked for return to me. Love cannot come into my life until I love. Then when it comes into my life, it may not come through those I expected or wanted. Therefore, I have to give up expecting and wanting. But if I expect love, I'll wait 7,000 years for it to come. There may be a lot of imitations of it come along, but in the long run, they'll all prove to have been nothing. If I want love, I must love. If I want abundance, I must give. If I want companionship, I must be a companion. If I want friendship, I must be a friend. Why? Because I and my Father are one, and I already have all that the Father hath. So there cannot be all that I have and some left over to be out here. A Christian Science teacher used the example of mathematics there. He says X represents infinity. Well then, X can't equal anything else, because there can't be anything outside of X. You can't add to X if X represents infinity. And if I represent infinity, and I am the way, the truth, and the life, is there any way, truth, and life out here? Is there any love or supply out here? No. Whatever comes into my life must come into it by means of my expressing it. For I and the Father are one, and all that the Father hath is mine, and I must open out a way for the imprisoned splendor to escape. Browning saw that. I must open out a way. When Burroughs wrote that my own shall come to me, it was because he had the vision that my is spelt with capital M. My own, God's own, that which belongs to the I am of me shall come to me. Now in this lesson, you see the simplicity of the infinite way, but also you see where the difficulty is going to be when you practice it. Because now it's a matter of self-training, self-discipline. You can't indulge yourself in the world and expect to practice this. You've got to keep yourself separate from the world so that nothing destroys your awareness and the same thing as a salesman going out to sell. In this truth, he can't go out to sell. He can only go out to give and to serve. Because since I and the Father are one, I already have it. So I can't go out to get more. And you can't sell truth. You can only give it. So when you go out, you can't sell your merchandise. You can only give it. You can give service. You can give love. You can give guidance. You can give truth. The reflex action of it will appear as sales. A salesman must learn to go out and give. open out a way for the imprisoned splendor to escape, and the bread that he casts on the water will return. Naturally, I don't mean you go out and give your merchandise away. I mean that you go out to give yourself. You give the truth that's embodied in you. You give the love that's embodied in you. You give the service that's embodied in you. And then the human appearance can appear as sales, in the same way that in our spiritual work, it isn't possible for us to sell truth. If we could sell truth, the thing for us to do would be to appeal only to millionaires, because they can pay the biggest prices for it. But we cannot sell truth. We can only give truth. The fact that we charge for a class doesn't mean we're selling truth. It merely means that we're paying our expenses, or whatever it may be. Nobody can buy truth. They can be grateful for truth, but they can't buy it. If you could buy truth, all the millionaires in the world would have it. I thank you, but at the same time, I feel sorry for you now as you go out to practice this, I frankly tell you.